Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with my full review of the Wavebourn Edelweiss-3, which is a combination headphone amp and preamp. Want to apologize for being about a month since I did my last review. I put out a little update video about a week ago, and I guess about 250 of you saw that, but for the rest of you, I just wanted to let you know I had to take a little bit of time off, about 3 weeks, because of some medical issues. I ended up in the hospital in the ER a couple times in about a week and a half with pain in my chest and both arms and my back, and the second time they ended up holding me in the hospital for about 3 days because they're saying it possibly could have been a heart attack, maybe stress related. I'm not sure. I wasn't aware that I had any heart problems, and actually get quite a bit of exercise, so I thought I was pretty healthy, but who knows. I have been kind of overloaded with work this summer, and so anyway, I'm done talking about that. I just trying to get back into this. This is the first review I've done in a month now, and I want to apologize to the people that have loaned me equipment for the long wait, and especially to, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Anatol Lewinsky, or Lizowski, I'm sorry, that he's from Wavebourn, and he's the one that loaned me this unit. And my first impressions video was about, I think, almost 3 months ago now. So anyway, thank you for being patient with me and letting me hang on to this long. And I did get some extra time to listen to it in the last few weeks. And one of the problems I had, though, is I was put on some medication that was making my ears ring 24 hours a day, and you can imagine how hard it would be to review high-end audio equipment with ringing ears. But I had to quit taking that medication, not for that reason, but just too many side effects, and the ringing has pretty much gone away in my ears, and I'm trying to get back into this. So I'm going to jump into this review. This is the Wavebourn Edelweiss-3. Like I said, it's a combination headphone amp and preamp. It's a Class A OTL Type 2 amp. And this was built by Wavebourn Electronics, and it is hand built in the USA, and currently retails at, I believe, $1,800 US. This unit has 4 analog RCA single-ended inputs. It has 2 preamp single-ended RCA outputs. It has 2 6.3 millimeter headphone outputs. They're both on the top of the unit. The dimensions are 12.75 inches wide by 8.25 inches deep by excuse me again, I just ate dinner a little while ago. Sorry. Let me get a drink. And it is 5.5 inches tall to the top of the transformer and tubes. Weighs in at about 7.5 pounds, and that's according to my kitchen scale. And I'll give you a look at the amp here. It's a little bit heavy and a little bit hard to hold on to, and I do not want to drop this, so I'm going to try to show this to you the best I can. You can see this is a 3-tube design. You got the 2 tubes here and then the one behind the transformer. Beautiful red paint job on this. And starting on the front here, you've got your power on-off button that has a LED around it. Then you've got your first one here is your balance control, and this is kind of unique. And tell you what, I'm going to set this down for a second while I talk about that, because if I tell you I'm going to tell you about it in a minute, I'll probably forget and not get to it at all. And it's an interesting feature, because when I first tried out this amp, I tried the balance control and it appeared to not be doing anything. And I thought maybe it's just for the preamp. Well, After listening for a while, I tried to mess around with it, and I found out that it makes a very subtle adjustment. And after speaking or texting with Anatol, he told me it only has 2 decibels plus or minus of adjustment. So what it is, it's a very subtle adjustment. It's not really, like a standard balance control. It's more just to center the soundstage. And this can be used for 2 different reasons. Either your equipment has a slight imbalance between one channel or the other, or in my case, and this is why I really like it, is I actually hear slightly better with my right ear than my left ear. And if I turn it without it, listening to most equipment, the center of the sound stage is just slightly off center. It's like I'd say about the right of my nose would be the center of the sound stage. And I've gotten used to that. It's not a huge problem, but with the balance control, if I turn it to about 10 o'clock, it moves the center of the sound stage right to the middle where it should be. And it's a cool feature, and the only other headphone amp that I've seen that on so far would be the SPL Phonitor XE. It had a similar balance control that did the same thing, and I really do like that, and I think it's a great feature, and I think more companies should incorporate that into their amps. But getting back to showing you the amp, on the front here you have the balance control, then you have your input control that switches between your 4 different sets of inputs on the back, and then you've got your volume control right here, and it's got a good feel to it, nice and solid, it's smooth, it seems to be balanced real well between the 2 channels. Let me get to the back of this. Like I said, this is kind of heavy at 7.5 pounds. Kind of hard to hold on to with one hand, and I do not want to drop this. I don't have $1,800 to replace it. So anyway, did want to point out the quality of all the connectors on the back, these RCAs. It's not the cheap kind that pulls out with your cord, with your cable if it's got a tight fit. These are real nice quality. So you got your 4 sets of inputs, and then you've got your 2 sets of preamp outputs, and here is a gain control for your preamp. Doesn't affect your headphones, but it does affect the preamp output, and it goes from minus 6 decibels to plus 12 decibels. Then you've got your AC input here, and you've got a ground connection here if you need it. And so anyway, before I get into the sound of this unit, I wanted to talk a little bit about the equipment I used reviewing this, and started out just about, well, pretty much 100% of my music comes from CDs, and currently using a Cambridge Audio 540C CD player as a transport only. And excuse me, during my review of this amp, I used pretty much 3 different decks, and I didn't have, well, when I got this in, I had the IFI Neo IDSD, which is a really good deck, and since a while back, I don't know, maybe a month after I got this, I got the Topping D70S, which is the second to the top of the line topping deck, behind only the D90S or SE, and which is not, the topping seems to be an outstanding deck. And I recently got in the Audio GD R8, which is a R2R ladder deck and resistor ladder deck, and which is little bit different sound, and something I've been curious about for a long time, and I'm gonna try to get my full review of that out in a few weeks. Anyway, and all that was run through my power supply, which provides my clean power, and that is by Core Power Technologies. And then the headphones I used in reviewing this were the Kennerton Valley, and that would be the original version. The LSA HP2, which is a headphone that I still highly recommend. It was my headphone of the year last year, and what does that run for? I think $7.99. I think it competes with headphones that cost 2 and 3 times the price. I had the ZMF Verite open back in while reviewing this amp, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes because that was an outstanding combination. And I tried the Kennerton Odin and the LSA HP Diamond, which are both planar headphones. And before I even reviewed this, I was chatting with Anatole, and he told me that he does not recommend this as a headphone amp for planar magnetic headphones. He said some of the easier to drive planar magnetic headphones, it works out pretty good, but he recommends this basically for dynamic driver type of headphones. The planar headphones just require more current than this is capable of putting out, and the sound quality drops a little bit because of that. He is, I believe, working on or already has another edition of this that puts out higher current levels that he said works great with the planar headphones, but this particular model, he doesn't recommend it for planar type headphones, and it's been my experience that it's not ideal, although it does work with some of the easier to drive, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So anyway, the music that I used while listening to this is pretty much my standard, a mixture of different types of rock, some pop, some electronic, quite a bit of acoustical music, and a little bit of orchestral music thrown into the mix. Some comparisons I did between this and other amps would be the only other tube amp or OTL type tube amp I have right now would be the Felix Audio Echo, and I realize it's not really a fair comparison. Price wise, this is about 2.5 times the price, but I really like the Echo, and it's a great amp, and so, you know, thought I'd throw it into the mix. Also compared it a little bit to a couple of solid state amps I have, which are the Audio GD Master 9 and the Burst and Conductor 3 Reference, which are more in the same price range as this amp. So wanted to see how those compared. So getting into the sound. Words I would use to describe this amp would be warm, not overly warm, just a little on the warm side of neutral, especially the mid-range. It's just got a nice warm, not analytical, not thin sounding, just warm and beautiful. I would describe this amp as sounding smooth. No rough edges at all, just like perfectly smooth, a liquid sound, and by that I mean just pretty much the opposite of dry. You know, some solid state amps can have just kind of a dry, sterile sound, and that's not the way this amp sounds at all. This has just got a smooth, liquid flowing, once again, just beautiful. I love the way this amp sounds. It has very good detail and very good resolution. I mean, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything detail-wise compared to any of the other amps I've listened to. And the thing that really impresses me with this amp the most about the sound is the biggest part of my music that I listen to would be acoustical with a lot of female vocals. And in my opinion, you know, acoustical instruments and the female voice are very hard to reproduce in a natural way that sounds real. And that's how I basically judge headphones, how I judge amps, DACs, things like that. How natural things like acoustic guitars, pianos, and, you know, especially the human female voice, how real it sounds to me. And I gotta say that this amp does an outstanding job of reproducing the female voice. It's just It sounds natural, it sounds real, it sounds organic. And like I said, I haven't heard an amp that does a better job of that. So sound wise, I'm really liking this amp. I really like the way it sounds, and especially, with the right headphone matched up with this. And so I'll talk a little bit about the headphones that I did use. I used the Kennerton Valley, and that would be the older original Valley. I've compared it to the 2019 version of the Valley, and I think there's an even newer one out. I actually prefer the older one. The newer one has some advantages, has a wider soundstage, that sort of thing, but I really love, especially for rock and pop music, the original Valley. It's got the best, not the most, but the best, highest quality, tightest, punchiest bass with a lot of dynamics, and it sounds as good with this amp as any other amp I've heard. It sounds outstanding. I love that headphone and this amp combination. The LSA HP2, which is, like I said earlier, my headphone of the year last year. The HP2, in my opinion, only has one small flaw. With that headphone, female vocals to me just sound a little bit dry. They just don't have, it can use a little bit of help. I mean, that headphone is outstanding, and every headphone has some flaw somewhere. Well, if I had to pick out one flaw of the HP2, is female vocals sound just a little bit dry to me. And this amp adds just enough warmth and enough liquid flowing sound to it that it just makes that headphone sound better than I've heard it anywhere else. And to be honest, the HP2, that's from LSA, sounds better with this amp than any other amp I've tried it with. It's just, I couldn't be happier with the way it sounds. The one slight flaw in that headphone, this amp pretty much fixes that and makes it almost the perfect headphone, in my opinion. I spent quite a bit of time listening to this amp with the ZMF Verite open back, and if you watched my review, I had a tough time reviewing that headphone because it's not perfect in my opinion. It's got some flaws, okay? It doesn't have the tightest bass in the world. It's not the most detailed headphone. It's got kind of an unusual sound stage that kind of wraps around the back of my head. And at first I was thinking, this headphone had some flaws, but then I realized that I really did like it. It didn't matter that it had some flaws. I really, really enjoyed that headphone, and the more I listened to it, the more I did like it. Well, I tried that headphone with several different amps, and to be honest, once again, that headphone sounded better with the Edelweiss-3 than any other amp, and the combination of that headphone, the ZMF Verite open back, and this amp was one of the most enjoyable headphone listening experiences I have ever had. And I really hated to send that headphone back. It was loaned to me by actually one of my subscribers, and I really hated to send it back because it just sounded so good with this amp especially. So that combination, like I said, I haven't tried them all, but I've tried a lot of headphone amp combination, and that was one of the most enjoyable of any combinations I've tried in the past. I did try the Kennerton Odin and the LSA HP Diamond, which are both planar magnetic designs, and like I said, Anatole said that this probably wasn't going to be ideal with those, and I did real briefly try it with the Hi-Fi Man Sandara, which is pretty power hungry, And no, it didn't sound as good as it should. It definitely lacked weight to the bass and dynamics in the bass because this amp just isn't putting out enough current for something like that. But to be honest, the Kennerton Odin sounded really good on this. The LSA HP Diamond, not quite as good. I think it needs a little bit more power, and that headphone doesn't really have any extra bass that it can spare any, so if an amp can't put out enough current, you're going to lose a little bit of impact on your bass, and I think that was happening with the LSA. It sounded good, but it wasn't the best I've ever heard. It sounded better with an amp with more power, but to be honest, the Kennerton Odin, I really enjoy the way it sounds on this. So, but it is one of the easier planar headphones to drive. I did want to compare this a little bit with a couple of different amps, and that would be, the first would be the Felix Audio Echo, and that is an amp that I really, really like. I mean, I have recommended that to so many people, and it sounds so good with so many headphones. And to be honest though, I compared the two back and forth and did that mostly with the HP2 and the ZMF. And I've got to say, this does sound a little bit better than the Echo does with those headphones. It's a little bit warmer in the mid-range, and the vocals just sounded a little bit cleaner to me, a little more detailed, a little more textured. But you know, is it a fair comparison? Because it's about 2.5 times the price of the Echo. So what would probably be a more fair comparison would be to compare this to one of the more expensive Felix Audio tube amps, but I've never had the chance to hear either of those. So I can't think of the name of their mid-priced amp right now, but I think it's competitive with this price-wise. That would probably be a great comparison, but it's just, I don't have it, so I can't do that. So yeah, I would say, you know, with most headphones, this is probably a step above the Echo, but, you know, once again, it's a lot more expensive, so that's not taking anything away from the Echo at all. But anyway, but to say this is better than an amp that I've recommended to 100 people, that's saying a lot. So anyway, I did compare this to the Audio GD Master 9, and the Master 9 is, it's definitely more analytical, maybe slightly more detailed, but this does have a warmer, smoother, you know, this just has that tube sound that the Audio GD doesn't. And same thing with the Burson Conductor 3. Both of those amps, the Burson and the Audio GD, have unlimited power, and they can power any headphone where this can't. But you know, compared to the Burson, also this it's just a warmer, smoother, you know, really more pleasant sound, but not taken away from either of those. Those are both great amps, they're both outstanding, but it just depends. Are you looking for the solid state sound, or are you looking for the tube sound? And this is, you know, a classic tube amp. It's got that tube sound. It's an OTL tube amp. You know, it's not a hybrid and nothing like that. I mean, if you want the tube sound, you're going to get it here. So, anyway, yeah, so I guess all that leaves is what do I like and dislike about this amp, and it's mostly likes. I've got a couple small dislikes, and I'll tell you what those are after the things I do like. It's got a beautiful, warm, smooth liquid sound. That's the main thing about this amp. I mean, it's outstanding in that capacity. I like the 4 sets of inputs on it. I like the 2 sets of preamp outputs and the adjustable gain. Those are all great features. I love the balance control, where I can make subtle little adjustments to the soundstage and center it. And another thing I really like is you can turn this on and off while wearing your headphones, and there's no pop, there's no nothing. I mean, it's just no sound. You don't get you don't get a buzz, you don't get a hum, you don't get a pop, and as far as background noise, this thing is pretty much dead quiet. So, dislikes, just a couple small dislikes. It would be nice if it could put out more current and power planar magnetic headphones like, the Sundara, like maybe even the Hi-Fi Manaria, something like that. But that's not what it's designed for. It works fantastic with dynamic driver headphones. Not really made for the high current demanding planar headphones, but like I said, it does work really well with the Kennerton Odin, but that's one of the easier planar headphones to drive. So just a lack of power for hard to drive headphones, even though it worked very good with the ZMF Verite, which I believe that's a 300 ohm headphone. I mean, it's not an easy headphone to drive, but this works well with high impedance headphones that need a lot of voltage. That's the way tube amps are, especially OTL. An OTL tube amp is going to work very well with high impedance headphones that need a lot of voltage, but they don't work well with low impedance headphones, planar type headphones that need a lot of current. So, you got to kind of match up the right headphone with the right amp. My only other issue with this, and I'll try to show you, is, and first of all, I got to explain. And this amp, and my understanding is this is a prototype amp, that this was sent to me before these things even really went on the market. I've had this thing for about 3 months now. So as a prototype, I don't think that Wavebourn was all that concerned about it being cosmetically perfect. So I'm assuming as this goes into production and, these are being sold, they'll probably pay more attention to the cosmetic issues. And there's just a couple minor issues. I don't know if you can see it here, if I get the angle right. On the end of this board, there's a couple drip marks that, in the finish, I'm assuming it was standing on end and that dripped to the end and then dried that way. You got a couple drip marks there. This little emblem here, it's just kind of a stick-on thing, and it's kind of not stuck on tight, and I don't know, I think it'd look better with something a little nicer there. And then one other issue is up on top here, around the transformer. I don't know if you can see it, there's an extra set of holes out here at each corner, and it looks like it was maybe originally designed for a different transformer, and then this one was chosen instead. It's a little smaller, so maybe they had to drill 4 new holes. So anyway, a couple extra holes there that it would look better without them. So like I said, those are just some minor cosmetic issues, but I do want to say though that the wood, the beautiful red paint job, the looks of it, I mean, it's a really good looking amp. It just has a few little details that need to be taken care of, and like I said, once again, if this is a prototype, I don't think those were really the concerns at this point. The concern was building an amp that really sounded good, and in that respect, they did a great job. So that would be my only suggestion to Wavebourn, is just, if you're going to go into production, mass producing these things or whatever. I mean, I realize it's a hand-built amp. They're not going to put out, thousands of these things or anything, but that's my only suggestion, is just, make sure that these little details all look good. Because, I mean, if I'm paying $1,800 for an amp, I want it to look good. And it does look good. It does look on my shelf. But I can, if I really, look at it with a magnifying glass, there's a couple little things that would bother me if I just, paid $1,800 for this. So, that's... But like I said, besides from that, I mean, this thing sounds great. Do I recommend it? Yeah, if you're going to use a dynamic driver headphone, even a high-end dynamic, something like the ZMF Verite, any high-impedance headphone is probably going to work great. Even low-impedance dynamic drivers, any dynamic driver headphone I threw at this sounded great. They sounded as good or better than any other amp combination that I tried. So if you're running dynamic driver headphones, this is a great amp. If you're trying to drive something tougher, if you've got something like the Hi-Fi Man Aria, or maybe the, Hi-Fi Man HE1000 SE or something like that, probably not a good choice. You're going to want something that can put out more current and drive a headphone like that. But for your dynamic driver headphones, yeah, I think this thing's great. I recommend it. It can also be used as a preamp to power your speaker amplifier, and with 4 inputs, it's versatile. You can do a lot with this, and like I said, that balance control where you can shift the sound stage a little bit if you've got a slight imbalance in between your channels, and anything from your DAC, your source, your speaker amp, whatever, you can make a small adjustment. Or if you're like me, you've got a slight hearing imbalance, you can fix it. And so yeah, this thing's a great amp. Just a few little details. Like I said, I'd just like to see it cosmetically cleaned up just a little bit, and yeah, I can highly recommend this amp. So thanks for watching my video. I'm gonna wrap this up now. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I think I'm right at about 2,500 subscribers now. And I'm going to try to get back on a schedule of about 1 review per week, because I've got about 4 or 5, 6, I don't know, reviews I need to catch up on. And I just found out a couple days ago I've got the new version of the Hi-Fi Man Aria coming in, the stealth version. So I'm pretty excited to hear that. I reviewed the original Aria about 2 years ago and really enjoyed it, and looking forward to hearing the new version of it. So gonna wrap this up once again. Oh, and please join us over at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We are up to 13.1 thousand members over there. We just keep growing. So like to see you all over there. And once again, thanks for watching my video.